We mentioned the Chippewa Nature Center, and for folks that don't know, what is your relationship to the Nature Center?
Yeah, I've been at the Nature Center 28 years. Started out there back in 1997, working in programming and exhibits and some of the collection work out there. And so I worked doing programs for a long time, canoe trips and kayak trips and those kinds of things, and working on exhibits. And then back in 2016, my predecessor, Dick Tuvell, retired after 26 years of service as ED, and I put my hat in the ring to serve as executive director and was hired to do that. And it's really just been an incredible journey for me to be able to be hands-on with Nature Connections through programming, working with just a remarkable staff of folks that are so passionate and so fired up about building strong connections between the natural world and people of all ages and abilities, to now being serving as executive director to really be involved with kind of moving some of the barriers out of the way for this incredible staff of folks, to make sure that we've got some funding coming in and that we're out in the community doing that work. It feels like a great capstone to a long time at a really remarkable place in a community that's been just incredibly supportive for us as well.
You're such a strong leader at the Chippewa Nature Center, and we have a legacy of strong leaders at the Chippewa Nature Center. You mentioned Dick Tuvell, and with strong leadership becomes this intrinsic connection to community. Mm-hmm. But I have to imagine throughout your life, you didn't always have this incredible connection to Midland that you have now. So
right.
I want to talk a little bit about where you're from. So where are you originally from?
I grew up in the Thumb area, Huron County. It's the tip of the thumb, and small town Port Hope. And but I grew up on Lake Huron, about 4 miles from Lake Huron, on a small dairy farm. And so that is really where I started to build my nature connection. And I would say at that point, it was almost more of a historical connection. I was really into history. I was really into the stories that were shared by my family and my grandparents, because we'd been on that land for several generations. And then tied to that is just the opportunity to enjoy Michigan in all its seasons, whether that was fishing or swimming in Lake Huron, riding bikes down to gravel pits and going swimming and doing those kinds of things. And so I have 4 older sisters, and it was just one of those childhoods where we were outside all the time. We were working hard, but we also had a very healthy sense of play through particularly my dad. He was very much into, hey, we got to milk cows, but we're also going to go fishing tonight and doing those kinds of things. And so I think that those, just like so many people that get into the field of environmental education, there's these strong mentors and these early experiences in nature. And that was definitely the place for me, that all of that, the kind of the genesis for all of that.
So at that point in time, being in the Thumb, I'm imagining Midland is just kind of a pass-through city for you.
It is, yeah. It was absolutely a city that I would drive through when we might see my sister, who was a student at Central Michigan University. I attended basketball camp at Northwood University when I think I was a sophomore in high school. So it was a place that I passed through, but I didn't have any family connection to it. And I knew, I heard some things about Midland or knew some things about it, but it wasn't a place that at that time I had a thought that I would settle and in this case be here 28 years.
As a Beaverton resident, I've always had this cool connection to Midland, and now I'm a Midland resident, but I should say as a Beaverton native, and I know you have a Beaverton native in your life.
I do, yeah.
And that probably is what built that connection a little bit more for you with Midland. So when you began exploring Midland, what was it like at that point in time?
Yeah, when I so my wife Michelle grew up on Wixom Lake and went to Beaverton High School, and so Beaverton was kind of the big town, Midland was kind of the bigger town that we would go to when we were first kind of dating. And at that point, I don't even know, the mall might have been a year or two around. And
91 or 92, I believe is when it opened.
So yeah, it would have just opened. So it was kind of the hub was out at that spot. And there was, movies that you could go to. But there wasn't, at least from my perspective, a lot of events that were happening down at the downtown area or along the river particularly. And so to see that blossom and grow to where, right now we're live or we're out on the street and we're seeing so many people walking up and down the streets, shopping in shops. And then the festival that's happening down there has just been a complete positive change from my perspective over these last couple decades.
And I know we're talking a little bit of history here for Midland, and history was kind of your jam before you got into your work at the Chippewa Nature Center.
No question about it.
So that wasn't your entry-level position into the Great Lakes Bay region. So do you want to talk a little bit about what you wanted to do when you were growing up and the spaces you wanted to be in? Yeah,
when I was in high school, I didn't know that this industry existed, right? You kind of know what you know by what you see around you. And it wasn't, there wasn't a lot of state parks or that we were going to because we had cows to milk. So we were home every night and doing that kind of work. And so it was when I went to Central Michigan University, started studying history, was going to be a high school teacher, was my objective with that, and was in one of my early classes. And one of my professors said, there's more that he said to the whole class, but I felt like he was talking to me specifically that, you can teach with this, or you can, investigate this idea of museum studies, museum work. And if you're interested in that, call the museum on campus. And I did that. It was very uncharacteristic of me. I kind of stuck my neck out and made that connection. And it was a complete life changer, this idea that you could do public history, take history, make it interesting for people of all ages. And then following that, I worked a summer at a summer camp up in Hale, Michigan. And that was when a lot of light bulbs went on for me that, oh my gosh, you can teach outside, tie it to canoeing, tie it to fishing, doing all of these things around outdoor recreation. And again, this is kind of in the early 90s. And so there was an industry around that, but it wasn't quite as supported maybe as you see it or professionalized as you see today. And so that was a big, big turning point for me to this idea around storytelling and human history. And then the missing piece for me was the nature side of it. So to see how the natural world connects to the historical stories that communities have, how that defines how people settle in an area. And then when you can pull the community in, that's a really rich experience.
So what was that catalyst for you to make that change, to move on from your position you were working within Saginaw in that history field to come over here to Midland? What inspired you to do that?
Yeah. So I spent right out of graduate school a year at the Historical Society in Saginaw, my first kind of big kid job. And it really was this idea around pulling in the natural history side of things, the study of nature, the outdoors, that connection as a place and a platform to teach from. And then I had at that point been around Midland a lot and saw how the community supported the arts, how the community supported places like the Nature Center, Center for the Arts, groups like that, and said, I think I'd really like to be a part of that. I think that would be a really remarkable town to work in. And honestly, at the time, I'd heard for so many years, Midland's a great town, Midland's a great town, it's a great place, it's a great place. And, I'm kind of suspicious by nature. And so, well, how good can it be? Can it really be that good? And once I got here, I mean, my eyes were really opened and realized that, to do the work that we do at a nature center or any of the nonprofits in the area, you really do need community support. And some of that is people generously writing checks to make that work happen. But some of it is a big portion of that is just saying, hey, the work you're doing is valued. And we're going to help out through volunteering, or we're going to remove this barrier for you so that you can get into this community or this community. And I saw that over and over and over again in Midland, that the folks here they commit to these projects, they see it as valuable, and they help lift it up. And that makes our jobs so much easier. I have colleagues all around the country that aren't working in communities that are quite as supportive as Midland. And I would say in general, our region is to make this work happen.
Subscribe wherever you consume media. Max Loves Midland is your entertainment, resources, and collective improvement hub for Midland County. Plan your next adventure in Midland at maxlovesmidland.com.